All right. Hey, Kyle, thanks for joining us on the Flipping Junkie podcast.
Hey, Danny, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
No problem, no problem. It's like very exciting. I've never been on a podcast before, so I get to check another thing off my bucket list.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's going to be great because that way I can pry all the secrets out. I'm sure you got tons of secrets.
That won't take long. I have very few secrets.
Yeah, we were talking before the show, and you said you had a total of two secrets. So we're going to work real hard in this episode.
Well, that's one of my secrets is how many secrets I have. So now,
oh man, so it's only one secret.
Down to one secret.
All right, well, we'll save it though for anticipation, so people listen all the way to the end.
Stay tuned at the end of this podcast for the revealing of my secret.
Your one secret, and that's what the show's about. Kyle's secret. That's the topic. Yeah. No, but
sounds like a show title.
So, Kyle, you guys do rehabbing, wholesaling, multifamily properties in Houston, right?
We do. So my company HL Homes, we kind of do as much as we can in the REI and the real estate investing space. We wholesale. We have a multifamily portfolio in the greater Houston area that we've been working on growing. We do rehabs, kind of the whole spectrum. We market deals for other investors, so other wholesalers that may not have a strong buyers list. Help people, kind of find exit strategies for great deals that they find.
Okay, so I'm going to write these down because to me that was a secret. To me, that was something that just made me think, you know what, why the heck don't we do more of that too?
I didn't realize I had so many secrets, Danny. Maybe you're much more secretive than I am.
So no, seriously, when I wrote down a one, I'm going to look at that later and be like, what was that secret again? Now I got to go back and listen to it. But yeah, I mean, basically like that like selling, if you've taken the time to build up a good buyers list and you got great buyers, why not network with other wholesalers and try to sell their deals and make something in the middle?
Well, so I'll tell you this, kind of like a brief history on HL Homes, and then it relates to it. So just bear with me for a second. So, my partner Eric and I started, formed an LLC because we, thought it'd be, we both worked together at another company, and, wanted to start flipping houses. We thought there was money. This is 2011. So we formed an LLC, started flipping some houses, and kind of did that very slowly. It was a super side gig, so we just wanted to make a couple of bucks on the side. And then in 2014, I wanted to make HL Homes a legitimate company to grow it and see what we could make of it. So I was the first official HL Homes employee. Eric left his job about 6 months or so after I did. But when I first, I quit my job and I was making pretty decent money. So I was trying to figure out how do I monetize, how to make money pretty quickly now. So, started doing the regular stuff. I started marketing, I started going on appointments, but through just network contacts and stuff that we had, we started to build a buyers list already. So we had a relatively strong buyers list. So that was like my first move was, I would go to networking events in Houston, and in Houston there's a networking event like you could go every lunch and every dinner for a month and not repeat a networking event. So I just go to a ton of networking events and meet wholesalers and say, hey, what's your biggest problem? And they would tell me, oh man, I've got this deal. I think it's pretty good, but I can't find a buyer for it. So that was kind of a vacuum that we were able to fill 3 years ago. And for the first year that we were, I say we started in 2011, we like relaunched, we like really started cooking in 2014. That was a huge revenue stream for us that first year.
Nice. Yeah. And so what do you Do you have them? They basically say the price that they're trying to sell it for, and then you just mark it up for what you're trying to make when you promote it to your list, or how do you work that out?
Yeah, so we do it a couple of different ways. Kind of depending on the wholesaler or the other investor. So there's sometimes that all that they'll need from us is just exposure. They would just want us to send a blast out to our list and just get them, just get phone calls going to them. At that point, we just ask for a percentage of an assignment fee. People that we've had great relationships, we take a smaller cut. If we've never done a deal, we take a bigger cut. But, we just try to make things equitable. We want them to make a lot of money so they continue sending deals through us, but, just enough to make it worth our while. We have some investors, or some wholesalers rather, that would just want to give us the deal and kind of take their hands off and go find another deal, which is great as well. And typically there we work a larger equity split, or we just take the contract ourselves. We just become the assignee, and then either close on the property and work on an exit strategy there, or wholesale it ourselves. And then this becomes just a little bit more complicated transaction, but certainly within our wheelhouse to do.
Yeah, nice. So a lot of this, I think people listening struggle when they hear things like this, because they're thinking, well, what contracts do you have in place for that, for your percentage, and what do you do for the agreement? Is it just trust? Are you just going off relationships that you've got where you guys just trust each other, and you know that if they want to keep doing deals with you, they're going to tell you that when you send out to your list and they're calling them directly, if they got a buyer through that, they're going to let you know and pay you your percentage?
So it kind of depends. It kind of depends on the individual. I'll tell you that when I first started marketing deals for other people, it was exclusively a trust thing, and maybe that was evidence of my lack of sophistication or me being naive. But you'd be surprised how many people would call and say, "Hey, I got that deal closed. You should be getting a check, or you should be getting a wire coming." And then what kind of transitioned from there is most people are, and you'll find this, I think, throughout business, most people are pretty honest. And then the people that weren't, if I say, "Hey, well, I've sent 3 deals out for you, and you haven't closed any of them, maybe your deals aren't good, or maybe my list isn't good. Maybe we should just part ways." Now, a couple of years, 3-4 years in, we typically invoice the title company. So we figure out where the property is open for title. We send title an invoice for either a set amount or a percentage, depending on what's been negotiated. And like I said, we're pretty fluid with that based off of volume. But that's typically the way that we do it. If we were going to take it, we just do it as a standard assignment. They would assign the purchase contract to us, and then we would assign that then to our end buyer.
Right.
If it's a property that we're going to work.
Right. Yeah. I like the invoice to the title company. It's a good way to do it, because then you know that you're going to be paid at a closing.
Oh yeah, that's
you're not
exactly
going to wait for it.
Because and that's the thing with the contracts are great, but a title company with an invoice, there's no way they're going to close a property without satisfying an invoice. We have a great relationship with our title company. Shout out to Allegiance Title and Sugar Land. But there's no way that, even with as great of a relationship as we have, that they would turn their back on an invoice or some sort of obligation in order to close a file, because the risks are too great for them, right?
Yeah, for sure. Man, so is your office close to Sugar Land or in Sugar Land?
No, we actually office. So if you know Houston, Houston is huge. So we office actually on the north side of Houston, and Sugar Land is on the kind of the far south side. So it takes us probably about 45 minutes or an hour to get to Sugar Land if we're going to go to the title company for something. Typically, we do all of our closings remotely. So we have notaries in the office, and
yeah, they just come to you. or let you print them and.
Yeah, they send us a closing package with a FedEx label, so we'll sign typically a day before we're scheduled to close, and then send the docs back and do that. So it's not a common thing that we actually go to the title company, but we do from time to time.
Oh, cool.
An hour drive.
Yeah, you had mentioned too that you guys were transitioning away from wholesaling a little bit over the last several months. And can you speak to why you made that decision to do that?
Yeah, so there were several things that led up to that transition for us. One, so we started really taking feedback from our sellers. Like how could we improve our process? How could we be we think that we're great, but how could we make it so that everybody would think that they're as great as we think that we were? And what we found is that what a seller wants more than anything is to, first off, to be like respected and told the truth, and then two, not to have any, to have as few inconveniences as possible. So what we found on the one hand is that we would go in and be really honest with our intentions. We'd say, hey, this is my price. This is where I can buy it at. If this doesn't work, like that's the number for me closing on it. If that doesn't work, then we could market this to other investors. We have other investors with different buy criterias than we do. So what we found is that there are other wholesalers that were out there that were saying that they were going to close on a property, and then not coming through on that. So we found that we were losing deals because we were being honest. And then other people were trying to give the perception that they were going to make things easier for them. So we really kind of went to the drawing board and tried to figure out like how could we make it a win for both. So we went on a private money raise and raised some additional lenders and kind of tweaked our buy model a bit, and we've been able to really offer that. So if somebody really needs to sell fast, we're able to take it down with them, and we've always done that. We've always been able to take properties down, but in the past, we've only taken properties down that were slam dunks that we're going to rehab and put on the MLS. But taking properties down to wholesale, I think is the industry term that people are throwing around. In order to take properties down to wholesale, that gives us way more time to sell. It gives us way more accessibility, so we're not having to worry about inconveniencing a seller. We're not having to coordinate with somebody else, bringing investors through. Like a pet peeve of mine is like when I go to look at a house and I'm walking up to the door and then somebody says, "Hey, tell them you're with State Farm." It's like, that's like and then we're able to access like a different buyer because we're able to advertise on the MLS. We're able to advertise to just different people than the investors that are just on our buyers. So we have a great buyers list with great buyers, but the more people that we can expose our product to, the better.
Okay, so I've got a lot of questions from that then. And by the way, also, to me, that was big secret number 2 that you dropped at the beginning of that was like actually asking the sellers, how can you improve your service and your process? Who else does that? Like, there's not a lot of investors that do that. I would probably say less than 1% of investors actually do that. So that's a big secret to me. I think that was very helpful advice. Everybody should be doing that. But the questions that I have then are, if you take them down, have there been times when have you lost money when you've taken these down? We'll just start with that one first, I guess, on some properties.
So you're asking, as a real estate investor, have I lost money on a deal? Yes. Yeah, I mean, so few and far between. and usually not on what I would call like our short takedowns. Most of the money that we've lost on deals has been rehabs where you misestimate, or rehabs where your contractor misses something and you have to reframe 2/3 of the house or something crazy like that. But most of the time we know kind of a worst case scenario. We know kind of we have a buyer that we know is going to buy it at this price, or we have like an archetypal buyer. There's a buyer out there that's bought from us in the past that's going to buy a property just like it at this price. So that gives us the confidence to take it down. And we're, like, I'm not going out there and buying houses at 95% and trying to sell them at 105% to market value. Like that's certainly not our game. We still want to buy deep and provide a value for our buyers as well. So.
Yeah, it's a key point. And then so what's the process? You take these down, you close on these, whereas before you might have signed the contract, you actually close on the property. What is the process at that point? Are you marketing to your buyers list before you list it? And if you don't get a buyer through that, then, or any interest, then you go ahead and list the property, or do you just straight up list it as soon as you get it?
Yeah. So if we have access to the property before, we might try to do some sort of. So if we know we're going to close on it because that's what we've committed to, but we have access to the property before, we might do a little bit of pre-market to it. But typically we're going to do everything at the same time. We're gonna blast the property to our buyers list. We're gonna list it, and when we list it, we're listing it for whatever that property in that condition would sell on the open market. So we recently sold a property in a affluent section of Houston that had a teardown house on it. So we sold the property for lot value. It was like it was a great deal for us, and a great deal for the end buyer as well. But we would have, if we were to blast that property out, we probably would have blasted it as a discount to our buyers. So there's some perceived value if they were to go Google it and find it on MLS.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so I completely lost my question. Let me see. So are you listing these yourself? That was the question. Are you guys have an agent that you use and have some sort of special rate, or do you list them yourself and take the calls, or have somebody in office do it?
Yeah, so we list them ourselves. So we are. There are 7 people in our office that all kind of have different jobs to do. Eric, my business partner, sits in the sales seat. So he, like myself and a couple of other people in our office, are licensed agents. So we do all of our listings ourselves. Most of what we do, we do ourselves, with the exclusion of a lot of our content, our online marketing, which you guys do for us. But all of our property management, all of our sales, we manage rehabs in-house. We have a construction manager, so we manage rehabs in-house. We obviously use contractors to do the dirty work, but that management is its own person, its own seat, has the capabilities therein. So long answer to your short question is we manage sales soup to nuts in-house.
Okay, cool. So you've got people there to take the calls and handle that. Because I was going to ask, when you list them like that, what's the level? Because my concern being, how much time wasting calls from agents do you have to deal with, and what kind of, have there been difficulties with explaining to people? I mean, I guess you own the property, so there's not a whole lot to explain. You're just selling it, and the place needs a lot of work. You're selling it as is.
Yeah, there's so much less to explain. There's so much less of a dance that goes on, as opposed to typical wholesaling. So, I think that all kind of relates back to being systemic and how you manage all of those things. So, the more things that you can disclose on the front end, I mean, it's like Realtor 101 stuff. The more people that you can keep from looking at your property that would never buy it in the first place, the better you are. So a lot of times we'll go in and clean up a property, so we'll go and do a trash out or something like that. But we're not going in and necessarily doing deep prehabs on most of our things, and unless there's going to be a great return by doing, if we're going to put a couple $1,000 and get a big return out of it, then that makes sense to do. But typically, we'll at most go in and clean it out and mow the yard. And
it's amazing what a difference those things make, right? Just cleaning the places out and broom cleaning it real quick.
Mm-hmm. Turn the air conditioner on and put a couple air fresheners in there, and assuming the air conditioner works. Yeah, it's like an asterisk,
Yeah, I was thinking like people bake cookies or whatever. It's like bake some cookies, but some of those houses, man, just the smell of like cookies mixed with urine and feces and everything else in them probably wouldn't go over so well.
Listeners, use your best judgment there, right? If your house smells like feces, don't bake cookies. That's secret number 5.
Yeah, that's secret number. Yeah, that's it. I think you're probably at number 5 already, but we just did one that I think we looked at like a year ago, and I still remember having trouble. Like, there's only been a couple of these. I've been in a lot of houses that smell like urine, but these, I couldn't breathe. It literally burned my throat. Like the what is it? The ammonia? Is that what the?
Yeah.
Like from all the cat urine and stuff. Crazy.
Yeah, I went and won. This was probably 2 years ago. But my acquisitions agent, we were getting pretty close to buying it. It was a rehab that we were going to do. So he asked me if I would go out there and walk with him. Just he wanted a second set of eyes, and I'll never let him forget it. But afterwards, we went out to lunch, and I was sitting in a booth, and I was like, man, this restaurant smells awful. But what it was is the stench had permeated my beard.
Nice.
So I had to go and clean up in the bathroom before I was able to eat. That was I said, next time show me pictures. I never want to go into the house again.
Yeah, that reminds me of this was a long time ago. Melissa and I were driving around, probably driving for dollars. This was early on, and a guy called us about a property that was real close to where we were driving, so I was like, well, let's go on over there now. And I go over and I knock on the door, and like the front door just kind of like creaks open just like an inch.
Always a great
sign. Wall of smell just from that inch of opening came out. It nearly knocked me over. Like, it was so bad. And, Melissa was like, I'm not going in there. She just stayed out. And I went in, and the ceiling had been leaking for years. All of the drywall had fallen down, and the insulation had got soggy and was all over everything. And there was tons of cats in there with feces everywhere. And the guy's cooking a burger in the kitchen, and the cats and their feces are all over the countertops, jumping over his food while he's cooking it. And, he asked me if I want one. It's, no, I don't want one, thank you. But, he's walking around. I'm trying not to puke, and he's eating this burger walking around. But, I mean, that was a funky. I think that house even had like a room that he wouldn't let me go into, and it had a bunch of padlocks and stuff on it. It was real weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the conversation. So the wholesaling, I like that idea a lot, and I think raising that money, being able to do that, and having a lot more control over the deals, and maximizing your profit from each one of them. Like you said, so did you find that you're finding some buyers for those maybe that aren't necessarily the typical investor that would be on a buyer's list? They're more of somebody that's
just the ability to take longer, to be able to slow down in the process, I think has been advantageous for us. So, wholesaling is a game of speed, right? So you're trying to get it under contract quickly and then make all the steps necessary to get it closed out as quickly, because as soon as you sign a contract, you start this timeline, and what we found is that a lot of times, you might not compete with somebody on price, so you might not be competing with another buyer on price. You're competing with another buyer on, all these different terms, and that a lot of times that term is speed. If somebody says that they can close a house in 7 days and they're a wholesaler, and you're like, well, maybe they could, maybe they couldn't. Kind of your only option is to, kind of reduce down to that denominator, if that's really where the seller is, especially if somebody's up against a hard place. If you're week 2 of the month and they've got a foreclosure letter that says that they're going to the courthouse the next Tuesday, right? That's only a Texas thing, right? Super Tuesday. So, if they're getting foreclosed on the first Tuesday of the month, you do kind of go, and the faster that you go, the more limited you are in your buyers, right? I think about, remember that CarMax commercial where the guy's like looking for a car. He's like, I'm looking for a car, and they show all the cars. It's like, I'm looking for a red car, and it like narrows it down.
Yeah.
Put those restrictions on, you're inherently narrowing your buyer pool, and then so as many of those, the more buyers that you can have in your available buyer pool, then typically the more selective you can be in selecting an offer, and typically that turns into better profits. But I mean, there are costs associated with it too, so we're paying closing costs on both sides. We're paying if the buyer's paying the closing costs on the second side, we're paying closing costs at least one time. We're paying holding costs for the money, origination, all of those things. We have to insure the property. So I mean, there are costs associated with it. So there's certainly way more risk, which I think you alluded to earlier, to buying and taking down a property than there is to wholesaling it. Because if you're wholesaling a property, your worst risk is if you put earnest money down, or an option fee or something like that. Then your money would be at risk. If you buy a property wrong and you were wrong, then you're stuck with a stinker.
Yeah. So, and he must be making enough to overcome some of those additional issues with doing it the way you're doing it. Was it, whenever you guys started doing that, was it like, holy crap, we should have done this way earlier? We're making way more than we would have had we just sold it and tried to assign the contract? Or was it like, yeah, some of them you get home runs off of them, some of them it's like, well, we made some money and we're moving on. So was it like a thing where you were wishing you had done it sooner?
So I would say that I wish that we had made a transition earlier, primarily just for the convenience, for the ease of it. It just makes the sales process much easier. It's been lucrative for us, but I wouldn't say has been like a 2x game changer. It hasn't been something that's doubled our business. I do think that it gives our acquisitions guys the confidence to go eyeball to eyeball with somebody and say, we're going to close on it, pick a date, as long as we can get title clear by that time, like the money's ready, we're our price is right, we're ready to go. So that kind of that like X factor, having our acquisitions team have that confidence.
And then no juggling, trying to get people in there and scaring the seller because you're trying to run people through the property to see it, right?
Yep. And like I said, still, if a seller says, even at our inflated, we're going to buy it and do a quick flip on it price, if somebody says that that's not their price, but there's still room in the deal, we'll just be honest with people and tell them, hey, we'll do our best. Like, let's sign this contract. Give me a couple weeks to, I'm gonna have to run people through here,
And so you give them the talk where you're connected with a lot of investors, or how do you approach that?
Well, so I mean, so we kind of stage it as we always make the first offer of, this is what we would buy it at. If like, we're going to buy it and I'm going to keep this house, right? So I'm going to buy it, I'm going to rehab it, and then sell it or turn it into a rental. That's always our first offer. And if that doesn't work, then we go kind of as high as we can go, right? And take it down ourselves. So we have like a different formula that kind of gives us that range. And then, yeah, so absolutely. So if they still say no to that number, and we can't overcome that, and they have a number that they have in mind, and their number makes some sort of sense. Like I said earlier, if somebody says their house is worth 100,000, it needs 20,000 in work, and they want 95,000 for it, well, that's not worth it for anybody. It's not worth our time, and it's not worth their time. It's not worth the seller's time, like to tell them that, yeah, maybe we can, Jim, maybe we can make that work. I don't think that's worth. I don't think that's the right way to do things. But if there's something it doesn't work for us, but we might be able to make a couple $1,000s off of it, or we might be able to pull a small assignment fee out of it, then we'll just be very honest with them, and we'll say, hey, look, this is not a deal for me, but everybody has different buying criterias. So this might be a deal for somebody. This might be somebody's favorite neighborhood. It's not my favorite neighborhood, but it might be somebody's favorite neighborhood, and they might jump on it at this price. And then we tell them that we are a business, so we have to make a little bit of money in order for us to do work. And I feel like if you frame things to people that way, if you frame things that way, people are receptive. Generally.
Yeah, I like that, because you're giving them an option, whereas other people that are only considering what they can do might walk away saying, I can't help you, unless you can take this lower offer. And so, I think some people have the concern when they offer that, because we do the same thing, but it's always like wondering about how that approach works. Sometimes it does, and then there's the concern of like, man, if we offered that, and, if we didn't offer that and we just waited a couple of days, would they maybe take our other one? So you kind of have to get, I guess, a gut feeling of which way they're going to go.
Right. And I think that's where the art form of even I call it sales, because I believe that it is, even that when we're buying, we're selling. Mm-hmm. The fact that I'm selling on you, on the idea that you should sell to me. So I think that's part of the craft, is knowing when, knowing when to play which card. It's something that's a dialogue that we have often with our acquisitions team, and we're constantly trying to make sure that we're mindful of. I think that's kind of a natural tendency in sales, is to take the easy way out. Is to like go for the easiest close. But that's certainly not the most lucrative option for us. And a lot of times it's not the right option for the seller.
That's a good point. That's a big point.
If somebody needs to close in 7 days, then we need to move the conversation away from how much money they can make as quickly as possible, right? Because if they need to close in 7 days, we are going to, like, I'm going to buy your house. So we need to agree on a price and then get that out of the way so that we can get to work. Because the longer that I stay here, like, the less time that, you're going to have to get a affidavit of heirship filled out. That's going to take, days and so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
No, it makes complete sense. I wanted you to keep talking to get more nuggets out of that. So, yeah. Yep. So, no, it was awesome. I was thinking also that it has a little bit to do with whenever you said, it's not always about the money. And it's not always about the money. And I think I did a podcast episode just recently about listening and really listening to people and finding out, because people make decisions based on two things, a logical reason and then an emotional reason. Usually the emotional one is the reason that they actually did what they did, but they have a logical one to explain why they did it. And so it gets into that whole conversation of getting down to really what the emotional thing is for them, and then helping them solve that, giving them what they want through that emotional perspective. And like you were talking about, maybe it's a part logical, but if it's about the speed of getting it done because of whatever reason, there's probably a lot of emotion and stress involved in that. And it's not at all about how much they're going to get. And so I think that's a huge point. I think that just reinforces that whole looking at it that way is like uncovering what the emotional part of it is. And whenever it's about speed, like why is it that you need to close so fast? Sometimes it's obvious it's a foreclosure or some other reason they need money for something else. But yeah, so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Secret number 8.
I think a lot of times people, Zig Ziglar said that like, I don't remember the exact quote, but in like a book that I read, 15 years ago, that people don't buy products. People like they buy you. They buy the salesperson. So it's like it's very like relational. It's very, if you're gonna go out and if you were to go out and buy a car tomorrow, and you're gonna buy the same car and you went to 2 dealerships, the pricing is about the same. You're gonna go with the guy that you like more. Is that being likable, and then how better to be likable than to be genuinely, interested and empathetic for the situations that people are going through.
Absolutely. I think maybe that's why I haven't bought that MacBook. I had set a goal for something, and I was going to buy a MacBook. I've got a MacBook Air that I've used for like 3 or 4 years or something, and it still works. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but I went and my daughter was going off to college. I was just telling you that they're down there in Galveston or whatever, but so we went to get her a MacBook, got her a MacBook. I didn't like the salesperson there, and I don't know what it was, and then now it's like I met my goal, and I was going to go get one because I liked the one that she got, and I was like, well, I'm going to get one of those. But and I was thinking, man, I met my goal, but I didn't want to go buy it. And logically, I'm like, well, I don't need it. Like my laptop still works. But I'm wondering if part of it's just because I didn't like that salesperson, it just made me not want to go buy it. But anyway.
Yeah, I
it
think
could
that's
be.
I think that's just a big part of the, like I said earlier, just the craft of sales and salesmanship. I think there are the best salesmen or the best salespeople that I've ever worked with are the people that have, like that it, like the part of their personality that you almost like can't describe, but they're just, strangely personable. I don't think everybody has. I think some people can develop it, but I think there are some people that are naturally better at salesmanship, and I think there are some people that are, maybe they should be. I don't know. I think sales isn't everything, but maybe you should be like an accountant or something where you don't have to deal with people. Like in office space, you should be like the guy who has the secretary who deals with the, with the customer, deals with the engineers.
No, do you physically take it? No, my secretary does.
I'm a people person.
I'm a people person. Damn it.
Understand that.
We were just talking about that the other day because some of the guys in the office are a little bit younger, and I think one of them said he hadn't seen it, and I was thinking, like, what is wrong with you? How come you've never seen this movie?
Stop everything. Watch the movie.
Yeah. So we're going to do a pizza party or something and watch it during lunch one of these days in the conference room. But
we've been on a Nacho Libre kick in our office, so that's every tech stream that goes around. It's always a competition of who can like sneak in a Nacho Libre picture or GIF that's appropriate to respond to like a question that somebody gave out. So
nice.
That's Nacho Libre. Stop what you're doing. Watch Nacho Libre. But Office Space, if you haven't seen Office Space, you shouldn't be doing business.
All right. So how much office space, do you mind my asking how much office space you guys have? And is everybody in office?
Yes. So everybody in our company works in an office. We probably have, 2,200 square feet, somewhere in there. We have a large conference room. I don't know how interested you are in our office. We have a large conference room, but we do work. So my business partner and I share a large office together, and that's kind of intentional. We before we moved to this office, we had another office kind of further uptown, and we played with the idea of like, oh, I'm gonna have this office or that office, but we found was that we were too separated. So just for like the sake of our partnership, it's like good for us to be able to like look across the desk and be like, what do you think about this? And he says, oh, what do you think about, so it's kind of relationally good. And then we have a large office that our both acquisitions agents share, kind of, same thing, so that, hey, I'm looking at this property, but, I'm not so sure about the value. Can you run a quick comp on it? And so we have a lot of office space, but we still try to keep people close together that work close together, just so that, we're not having to constantly intercom from room to room when you're 15 feet away.
Yeah, I'm always interested in the two sides of it, because people that I know of that have built up the business of flipping into an actual business where they can kind of remove themselves somewhat. There's like two camps, right? The one where it's like, well, we have everybody remote and we just meet together sometimes. And then the people have everybody together. And I couldn't imagine having everybody remote. I think something's kind of lost in that, where there's not the camaraderie, there's not the teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
That whole dynamic, I don't know if it's missing or not. I've never tried it. It's probably still there, but I wonder at what extent.
Yeah, and I think part of that goes back to leadership style, and I would completely agree with you that I could not imagine running an office our size, and we're not big, we're 7 people, but I couldn't imagine running a team without seeing them often. And I think part of it, and we've had several VAs, kind of do different tasks for us throughout the years. The first 6 months or so, like I wouldn't have survived without the assistance of a VA. But we were never able to like fully, even though like typically like they're a great price per hour, like over what you would pay somebody that's like in your office. You might pay them half of what you'd pay somebody in the office, but I could never get the appropriate amount of value out of them, out of a VA. And I think largely that's because I just don't understand how to manage somebody, that remotely. So I think it's great to be able to just walk in someone's office and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about it? Rather than trying to get them on the phone, you miss them on the phone, then you're trying to, schedule or trying to get on somebody's calendar to have a 30-second conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, we're keeping things in-house for now, and I think we probably will continue to. So it's interesting to hear that perspective of it too. So we were talking before the show, and you were saying, I think everything that you have, we are a member of. And I didn't ask about Flip Pilot. Have you joined the Flip Pilot group on Facebook?
Yeah, the Facebook page. Yeah.
Okay, so it's good to have you in there, because you've obviously done what a lot of people are wanting to do and should be doing, and building the company out the way you've done it. So, and how long did you guys go as just you and Eric just working together before you brought anybody on to help?
So we were talking about this the other day. So this is the approximate timeline that I can remember. So we formed the company to do flips in 2011, and at the beginning of February 2014, I left my full-time job, to work at HL Homes. And then Eric was working for a hard money lender in Houston at the time. So, I mean, making great network connections and stuff like that, but ultimately, like, he wanted to build the empire, so to speak. So he started transitioning, I think, June of 2014. We brought our first acquisitions agent on in probably August of 2014. And he's still with us. We've had a lot of turnover in the acquisition space, but Brent is still with us today. So gosh, what is 3 years? 3 years later, almost. We should probably get him a cake or something. And then we brought she started off as our office manager, and then she this year transitioned to our construction manager. Olga started working for us, I believe in October, November of that year.
Wow, so you guys did it pretty quick. You were moving pretty quick, and was it a matter of saying, "Hey, I don't enjoy doing this," or "This is too time consuming. Let's hire somebody to do it for us." Like, what was your thought process in starting to hire people?
Well, we probably should have had I mean, transparently, we should have had a better plan initially, because while I say like that Brent, Brent started with us in 2014, it's been this whole time, we hired probably 2 or 3 other acquisitions agents shortly after we hired Brent because we thought that we were ready for it, and we just weren't. Um, so probably towards the middle of 2015, we kind of stopped a lot of what we were doing and like really reassessed what we were doing and made sure that all the hires that that we were making at that point, we're in line with like systemic, sustainable growth. It was like in the direction that we wanted it to be. We read a book called Traction.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book by Gino Wickman, and they call it the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and it's really a great process of like how to break down all the little steps to how to clarify roles and things like that. Through that process, we ended up hiring a business coach to consult with us. Somebody with outside experience. Really, he knows very little about real estate, but knows a ton about business. So he's just been able to be a great asset for us there. So the reason that we grew as quickly as we did is really because like we have this idea that everybody can be pretty good at a lot of things, but if you want to be really good, then you really should only do a couple of things. So I really wanted our acquisitions agents. I wanted to be able to, go meet with another investor and say, my acquisitions agents are the best in Houston, hands down. And I knew that they wouldn't be that way if I was asking them to, manage reals and to do just a ton of different things.
And that's the temptation.
Best acquisitions guy.
Yeah.
If that was my full-time job was to be an acquisitions agent, I knew I couldn't do that. And then I love what, kind of the tagline of being a foot pilot is also look at the business from 30,000 feet, and really make sure that the ship is heading in the right direction. I knew I couldn't do both of those things. So that's really why we started adding staff. And like I said, at first we added staff willy-nilly, and it took us a while to really narrow that down. And now we're very systemic, and so we're in the process of we'll add another acquisitions agent in the next 90 days or so. So we're kind of at the very beginning of.
Will that be number 3? You said that'd be number 3 or 4?
Number 3.
3. Yeah. So well, that's probably secret 14 and 15, I think, if my tally is correct. But yeah, it's funny whenever you're hiring people, like the temptation is to do kind of what you. At least for us, for me, what I was doing was always trying to do more than I should be doing. And I would hire somebody and say, well, I could have them do this, 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 and this. I don't see how that's a full-time job, so I'm going to have them do these other things. And it's a horrible thing to do. It's definitely not the right way to go about things. And I don't know how many times I've got to learn that lesson. I don't know if you suffered from that more than you should have, but.
For sure I did. For sure. Well, and I also believe that people operate at their best when they're probably like 85% to capacity. Most people that are probably listening to your podcast that are entrepreneurs, that have like that spark in them, that are 80-hour-a-week people would think like 85%. If I'm not working 110%,
right,
then I'm not working. Well, you're the minority. Most people need to be in that, kind of cruise control spot where, they can still turn it on. So if things get busy, they can still turn it on and squeeze out that extra 10 or 15% and, take care of business. But they need to operate most of their lives kind of in a, not redlining.
Well, that way they enjoy what they're doing and not stressed out.
Yeah, because if not, you're gonna stress people out, you're gonna burn people out, and then you're gonna end up hiring people over and over and over again. And the there's nothing less enjoyable than training somebody a second time. Than training a new person to do a job, unless it's like a great that you promoted somebody. Somebody that's our office manager moved into a construction manager role, who had to train our transaction coordinator to kind of take over some of those roles and things like that. That's a good thing. You feel good about that. But when you're like teaching somebody how to log into Gmail again, because you burned an employee out,
That. So you guys document your systems and so that whenever you do have to do training again, you just kind of like go through the steps that you have documented?
Yeah, so we're actually kind of in process of doing that. That's something that we should be a lot better at. Kind of right now, we have a very detailed outline of all of the processes that are in place for kind of like all the pieces that we use, like all the systems that we use. So ideally what we'd want is to move to something toward for the videos that you have for RA Mobile and Lead Propeller. You have videos for Lead Propeller too?
Yeah.
I think
the screen capture stuff with Camtasia or whatever it is.
Yeah, the RA Mobile, I think we spent, or me and one of our acquisitions guys probably spent a week locked in an office just like watching videos and trying to how to use it to its full potential, which we probably don't do. Probably don't use it to its full potential. We do pretty good.
Well, probably because sometimes we add a bunch of features and then don't create videos for them, and then people don't know about them, and I shouldn't say that, but I mean it's just the fact of like developing so much, we get behind on even telling people, like they're saying, it'd be cool if it did this, and it's like, it's been able to do that for a year. But it's my fault you didn't know that, not your fault. But,
there's something, I can't remember what it was, but I emailed support, and then I got an email back probably an hour and a half later of, was it Tyler or Matt? I don't remember exactly who sent the email, but somebody sent an email back to me with like a screen capture and was like, hey, I could have typed this out, but I thought it would just be easier for me to voice over and send it back. And I thought, that is it. But I think that, it's 2017. Like, I think things like that are probably more applicable than an employee handbook or something like that. But I definitely think it's important to, important to be able to systemically, repeatably train people.
Yeah. No, you made a good point, because actually, Melissa and Grayson have been working in our office on documenting the systems in a lot of different ways, and a lot of it gets done in Google Docs or something. We print them out, put them in a binder. But I don't know that a lot of people like to go through that kind of stuff that way. If they like to learn or consume that kind of process that way. So I think that's something I'm going to talk about is, maybe doing some live action, just talking in front of the camera or something, or build out a real quick slideshow and just record it and explain the processes that way. That way, if there's something you need to show them, you can show them, and just instead of saying, typing out, click on the green button.
Right.
Yeah, good idea. So was that secret number 18 or 19?
I feel like that's a joint secret. I feel like we discovered that one together. That's a good idea. We're going to do that.
Well, this has been awesome. I really do appreciate it, and appreciate you being a customer for Lead Propeller and using the services for PPC and SEO and REI Mobile and all that kind of stuff. So it's really good to talk to you, and I've heard a lot about you from Josh, so I'm glad to have you on the show, and want to definitely keep in touch.
Cool, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's good to talk to somebody, and I know that you guys have been killing it in San Antonio for a long time. I remember very early on, one of the example sites that Eric, my partner, sent me when we were just kind of we were not REI Mobile or the Propeller customer at the time. He sent me Danny Buys Houses and was like, this guy's website, he's got it nailed. So we're at full circle. We were down 3 years later. We'd be talking about it.
Nice. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. We just have to definitely want to keep in touch and everything. And it was how can people contact you? So if anybody out listening wants to contact you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you if you're open to that?
Sure. My email address is Kyle, Kyle, at hlhomestx, like Texas.com. Kyle at hlhomestx.com.
Nice.
That's probably the best way to get in touch with me. You can go to our website, hlhomestx.com, which is a lead propeller site.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to include that in the show notes page too. So if you are driving, couldn't write that down, you can find that on the show notes page at flippingjunkie.com/89. Because this is episode 89. Just type in / after flippingjunkie.com. 89.
Really hope I had another episode for like in the pipe so that I would be number 90, because I feel like that would be monumental, but I guess 89 is all right.
Wait, why did you want to be 90?
I know, it's like a round number.
Oh, around yeah. 89's a nice number too, though. I mean, if you really are that interested in round numbers, I'll have you back on for 100.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, cool. All right, Kyle. Thanks a lot again. I appreciate it. Had a lot of good time with this one.
Awesome, Danny. Good to talk to you.
All right. Talk to you later.